Well, it's March 29th, maybe. Time to take down my winter planter displays. I actually tried to a few days ago, but there's floral foam inside and it was still frozen. But we've had enough nights above freezing that I think it's going to be okay. You can see I just stick it right in there in the floral foam. But it was frozen, so it couldn't come out. I'm actually pretty pleased with how these held up over the winter. We get really strong winds, and every time I hear the wind howling, I think, oh, there go my different floral stems, but they stay right in there really well. The only thing I lost, I noticed over here, this one little guy here, looks like he actually broke off in the wind, but other than that, I think everything stayed in place, in part because I have this metal orb, and that's really the key, I think, to keeping these together for the winter and the spring. In the summertime, I put live plants in here, sometimes a fern, sometimes a mandevilla vine, and I don't have the orbs in it for that, but for the floral stems that I put in the winter and the spring, I think that's what makes it look so full and upright. So I'm going to take these apart, show you exactly how many stems it takes to fill this size of a planter, and then put together the one for spring. So maybe you'll get some hints if you'd like to do something similar at your house. Now, in addition to actually staying in the planter, most things are in really good shape and I can use again next year, except for these like foam beads. These were covered, I don't know if you can see, they were covered in silver, but the elements just really wore all the paint off, and they do not look good, and they're kind of smashed as well. So I don't know that I would even bother repainting these. See how like they're foam and they crush. I like the look of them. Not sure if I'm gonna use them again. I think I'm gonna try to find some plastic beads for next year. But everything else, you know, so this is plastic. You know, these are your typical evergreen stems. But I had not put anything in here that's like velvet. This is like a silky fabric, and that was fine. These plastic beads did well. The pine cones are fine. Surprisingly, even these guys did okay, which I'm assuming are kind of like the foam. Maybe they're just sprayed better, I'm not sure. But everything I chose did pretty well. I did at one point see some like velvet, really pretty velvet poinsettias that I did not think would hold up well, so I did not put those in. But if you're thinking of doing something like this, definitely stick to things that are, you know, plastic, durable, or silky. Otherwise they're just going to disintegrate. Although pine cones seem to be fine. That's a fake pine cone, but this one's real. And you can see as I deconstruct this instead of put it together, that you're going to have to be sticking some of these in between the bands of the orb so that it stays together. That's not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes you've got to bend the branches, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem since this is plastic and wire. So putting this together requires stems of all different sizes. So you can see on the outside, the ones that go in last, there are, you know, smaller ones, shorter ones, and then these big, tall ones, of course, are gonna fill up the middle. And in addition to the greenery, I like having some sparkle too. So we've got this sort of pale, dusty gold. I don't even know what kind of plant that is, but it looked really pretty. And then there were some things with like little crystal bits, and these are plastic, so it held up really well. But if you're out hunting for things to put in to your own arrangement, you definitely want to get some small, medium, and large. This is a pretty big one too. And here is the empty urn with just the orb. And you can see I placed a brick in there just for a little extra security to keep everything from blowing away. This urn I think is a pretty typical size urn. It's 12 inches in diameter. I think they're not always the easiest thing to find, but I think most nurseries usually have a little selection of concrete. I've seen these at big box stores, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. And then the orbs are harder to find. I got this at Target years ago, and sometimes they have them in stock for a little bit in the spring. This is 15 inches across, and if there wasn't floral foam here, it would nestle in a little bit lower. I think if you had a smaller one or a bigger one, that would work too. It would give you either a smaller base to work with or a larger base. This obviously needs to be touched up with some Rust-Oleum. Probably going to do that after I take out the spring bouquets. But I will try to put some links in the description of places you can buy these orbs. Like I said, they're not the easiest thing to find. And even if you don't put them in a planter like I'm doing, they're very cool, even in the garden. Like, let's see if I can, well, I will take it out and put it in the garden to show you. So even just as an ornament in your garden, I think garden orbs are really cool. You could paint them any number of interesting colors to just add a cool architectural pop. I mean, I literally just toss that in my garden, and I think it looks pretty cool. So if you ever see these and you don't know quite what you want to do with them, just grab it and you will find something to do with it. There are all the flowers that I took out of the planter. I got most of them at like Michael's and Joann's, on sale of course at the end of the season. Trying to think how much I spent per planter. Probably $70 or $80, even with the sale. So you need the plants, the planter, the orb, and floral foam. You really need something to stick those stems into, and it absorbs, water from rain, melting snow. There's a different kind of green oasis that's dry. Oh gosh, that was a little centipede. I would probably swap these out right now if all the craft stores weren't closed for the coronavirus. But I think this will be fine, because as you can see, after poking so many holes through it, there are places where it's not going to be able to grab as well. So maybe I'll just turn them upside down and see if that helps at all. And one other idea for winter for these planters, obviously you wouldn't be using the orb, but you could put some little evergreens in it. This is a dwarf Alberta spruce that was in those planters, in one of them, I don't know how many years ago. I see them all over the place in the winter. So I bought two of them and then decided to plant them. I think if you took good enough care of them in pots during the summer for a few years, you could probably reuse them, but at some point they're gonna be too big to put back in. But that's another option too, especially if you wanted to string some lights on it or something. It was pretty cute. So I got a big tub to store everything in, and I keep the two piles from each planter separate, so I don't have to spend a lot of time trying to divide it up equally between the two in the fall when I'm out here in the cold. So I'll lay down this pile, and I'll just put a piece of cardboard or empty garbage bag in between this pile and that pile and put them in here. A good tip though, if you are going to do spring and winter plantings, not plantings, but decorations, get a tub that's big enough to store them all, because in the summer they're all going to be in here, spring and winter, and it's a little bit smaller than I would like it. They don't all quite fit in there. But here are my spring items to go up. Again, I followed a lot of the same rules with the plants, using silk and plastic. Even these pussy willows are just plastic with some, I don't know what that is, just some material on it that make it look like pussy willows, but they're not any kind of material that's just going to disintegrate on you. And so then last year I felt like I didn't have enough stuff in there, because of course I didn't. So this spring, before everything closed down, I went out and I bought a few new things to add to it. You know, I like all of these are blossoms that would be blossoming soon. We've got like some dogwoods, and these look like just buds on a tree about to open. And this has forsythia, and I have a couple of Easter eggs. So we'll put this together and see how it looks. So first in are some sticks of birch. I've had these for several years. I think I even used them in a couple Christmas displays. You can get them at craft stores. Use your 40% off coupon to get them. But you can see that I've threaded them into the orb so that it helps stabilize it and they don't fall out. Next, if you have any sort of signature pieces that you only have one or two of, I would put those in next so that you can really make sure that you're sort of mirroring them in each arrangement. These are obviously not going to be identical, but I do like them to sort of mirror each other. So you can see that I put this stick with a little bird nest on it on the outside right of this one and on the outside left of this one. So that when you look at it, like I said, it's going to look like a mirror image. So those would be the next thing that you would put in. Then each of the arrangements got these three like tree buds that oh, it's thundering, that I tried to put in similar places. And I just saw some lightning, so I'm gonna go in and finish this later. All right, I lucked out. It started pouring the minute I walked inside. So I added 3 new bunches of dogwood blossoms to each planter, and then I had to pop up the stick with the bird's nest because you couldn't see it. So as you're making the arrangements, you're gonna move things around. See how over here you can't really see it? So, and it might take, you gotta step back, you gotta take a look. And like I said, it's not gonna be perfectly matched to the other side. But that's a good start. And actually, if I didn't have the brick in there holding it down, I think that sparse of a look is still kind of nice for a planter. Spring doesn't have like abundant blooms all over the place. And in fact, dogwoods bloom on bare branches even before the leaves come out. So I even like how this looks. But of course, I'm gonna add some more. So hang on. Then the last thing I'll add in are the items I have the most of. And these are these silk floral picks, more dogwoods. I think these are probably cherry blossoms and forsythias. Now these I actually got from the Dollar Tree. And the Dollar Tree is a surprisingly solid place for some craft items. So each of these stems was only $1. And I did not also point out that I got pussy willows there too, which those little buds are plastic. So those are not gonna dissolve in the elements. Now the only thing was though, I couldn't find enough for my 2 planters. And that's when I discovered last year that you can go online and order stuff at dollar store, usually in lots, like not like one floral stem. I'm trying to think if it was 36 maybe? Or maybe 24, I don't remember. But you can order it online and they deliver it to the store for free, which is very cool. If you're gonna have like a fairy garden party, or if you need some stems like this for a project or a wedding or something, because I really didn't feel like going around to every local store trying to find the right amount of stems for my project. I mean, I like shopping, I like thrifting, but when you know what you want, you just want to get it. So that's really, I think, a great resource. And they have other items online that they don't have in the store. So it is worth a shot. They have some good stuff. So we're going to tuck these into the planters now. You might notice that I also have some actual branches. These were probably from Michael's or something. They're painted. This one's like a glittery white. You can see some of the paints come off of it, but I still like them in there. The spring, you still have a lot of just bare branches around, so I think it adds nicely to the arrangement. So let me get to it. I filled up one of the containers with almost all of the stems I have, and I still feel like I don't have enough. Especially because you can see the brick. You know, with the Christmas foliage that I have, all those needles and little tiny picks that I had that I could put around the bottom really hid that, and I don't have that. So I have folded up a couple of the longer stems so they're not quite as tall. I mean, if the stores are open, I would go out and buy something, but they're not. So I think that helps a little bit. Looks like last year I did buy a short forsythia. Should have gotten more of those. That would really solve our problem. Now, I had also purchased a couple, these are daffodils, but I don't really like how they look in here. I mean, I guess from far away you can't tell, but everything else on here, these are all flowers that bud on trees, and I kind of like that. That's the vibe, that's the theme we've got going on here, and I just feel like these daffodils stick out like they really don't belong. So I think what I might do, I have some Spanish moss or sphagnum moss that I could stuff inside of it and cover up that brick. So I will do that and see what we think. And I love to, can you see these tall, thin sticks that I put in? You know, the ones that were painted white. I like how they give it just a little bit more height. So I probably would like to get a few more of those. And I think I need a few more whites and pinks in there. Not whites, yellows and pinks. So I will, I guess, jot that down in my garden journal, that when I get a chance, I'm gonna buy a few more of those and get it a little fuller. So here's a bag of moss, and I'm gonna just stuff some in there and see how it looks. If I had known I was gonna have this problem, I maybe would have glued the moss onto the brick first, but it's really too hard to get out now, and I don't want to take away the whole arrangement. So I will put some in there and see if it looks good, see if it blows away. It'll be an interesting experiment. So I added the moss. It's not perfect, but I think it helps a lot. I think it turned out pretty well. I don't know that I'd want to be adding a whole bag of moss every spring. So I'm curious. I don't know. I also wonder if I did glue it to the brick, how much of it would stay. I mean, you can see it doesn't cover everything, but it has a nicer look than just that brick sitting there. Maybe if I had a little bit more moss. Or I just need to get more short flowers to cover up the bottom. And like I said, you can't really see from the street. It's not like people are going to be honking and, you know, laughing. But just for my own preference, I think it helps out to have it in there. And then, soon enough, we'll be adding real flowers in here. And I've never done a fall arrangement. I usually just go right from summer to winter, you know, once the frost hits. But maybe stacking some pumpkins on there might be cute. We'll see.